My name is Shelley Sim. I am the trustee for the North Thompson and chair of the Finance Committee for this year. It is a pleasure to be here with you and an honor to acknowledge that we are meeting on the traditional unceded lands of the Secwepemc. To all of you who are joining us this evening, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to tune in. With us from the Board of Education, I have Chair Kershaw, Trustee Grieve, Trustee Jewels, Trustee Karpak, Trustee McKelvey, Trustee Small, extending their regrets, Vice Chair Wade, and Trustee O'Fee. Also with us is Superintendent Sullivan and our fabulous finance team, Secretary Treasurer Stretch, and Director Cassidy. Before I turn it over to the superintendent and the finance team, I would like to take a moment to express gratitude to everyone who contributed to this draft budget. It has been a long and exhaustive process, but one that has had vast input from all parts of our district. I don't have to tell any of you how difficult this year has been, and yet this entire team stayed focused on the goal, which was providing the best possible education to our students. This was an enormous effort. We feel very fortunate that the students in SD 73 were able to return to the classroom, which wasn't the case in all regions of the province or even in parts of our country. What our teachers did, administrators did, was really a feat. If we think back to September and the many transitions that were made, I think it's just an important moment to do a round of applause to them. They were remarkable. All of these changes and the adaptations, the SD 73 team made this happen, and it is not thought that their work was not unacknowledged. Because of all of their efforts, each part made the whole. This draft budget charts a direction for the coming year. It is modest and cautious. With COVID, there are still many uncertain elements. We look forward to your input, knowing that we share the common goal of serving our students and the families of all of the Kamloops area. The financial stewardship of the finance team at SD 73 has allowed us to do some great things despite these unprecedented challenges. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Secretary Treasurer Stretch. He had intended to retire last year, but stayed on to help SD 73 navigate through the challenges of COVID. Thank you. We needed your experience and your entire team during this past year. I can only imagine the number of days when you were late at the office and wondering, what did I do? And yet you stayed, and we are grateful. And next year it will be quite sorrowful when we wonder how to stretch a dollar without you. So with that, I would like to turn things over to Superintendent Sullivan for his opening remarks on the budget process.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On March the 24th, I visited Blue River Elementary School and Vavenby Elementary School. And those school visits completed my visits to all schools and major work sites in the school district that began last September. Those visits enabled me to speak to all principals and work site directors and managers, as well as many teachers and members of our support staff. I hope that what I heard during those visits is somewhat reflected in the budget you're about to hear presented. Our overall priorities have to be somewhat tempered by the year we have had due to the pandemic and the challenges that still await us during the remainder of this school year. It is always challenging to try to peer into the future, but in my time as a superintendent, I've been through H1N1, SARS-12, and now COVID-19. So I think we must start to look beyond this year and be prepared for other viruses my experience and instincts tell me might come our way. This budget will also reflect our desire to continue to make our schools inclusive for all children and youth. And that means that we will need to provide more support for our principals, teachers, and support staff who are working sometimes with students who have severe behavior difficulties. We are looking for some additional initiatives in this area, and it should also illustrate that we are looking not only at the size of our schools, but also the composition of our schools. Finally, I want to say, in my previous experience as your superintendent, I had 15 years of enrollment decline. We went from approximately 18,000 students to 13,800 students, and they were very challenging years budget-wise. In this budget, we will see increased enrollment and a chance to provide some flexibility for new leadership in the superintendency and in the secretary-treasurer roles that will take us into the future starting in the next school year. I want to thank Secretary-Treasurer Stretch for his final budget, Director Cassidy for all the great work she has done, all members of the senior staff for their contributions to this year's process. And I trust this budget will provide the platform that we need to enable us to continue to move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Sullivan. And I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the board, all staff, and I hope our entire SD 73, thank you for stepping into this role and leading us through these difficult months. I think that we all appreciate your care, your concern, your direction, your communication to parents, and really helping us feel as though the captain of the ship is leading us in the right direction. Thank you. I'll now turn it over to Mr. Stretch, who will guide us through this next process and for his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Sim and Superintendent Sullivan. There's no one single report that is more important in supporting the strategic priorities of the Board of Education and Senior Administration than the approval of the district's annual budget. The total school district number 73 preliminary budget for 2021-2022 school year is almost $200 million. And there are very few initiatives that can be implemented today without funding to pay for staff and supplies. The district budget is a significant undertaking for district administration focused on district priorities and continuous improvement. The budget is complex and has many moving parts, but the 2021-2022 budget will have continued complexity around the final stages of the pandemic. I believe this budget is very thoughtful and comprehensive because it was developed based on direction from the Board of Education with operational input from administration. Keep in mind, this is not my budget or Director Cassidy's budget, it is our budget, and the success or failure to deliver our budget plan is almost entirely up to senior administration. I will admit there are some factors that are outside our control, like a fire or a pandemic, but if we work together, we will address these external pressures as a team because our work requires cross-departmental considerations and continued support from the Board of Education. I'd like to turn the mic over to Director Cassidy for the formal portion of the budget presentation.
Thank you, Secretary Treasurer Stretch. I'm just going to take a few seconds to set up the presentation. Okay, so good evening, everyone, and thank you for attending this presentation on the 21-22 draft annual budget. To ground our work here at SD 73, we refer to the vision and mission statements to ensure that our work aligns with our purpose. Our vision statement is to be a dynamic school district achieving success for all students through a commitment to equity and excellence. And our mission statement, we connect students to their future by transforming the way all partners collaborate to create relevant, innovative, and inclusive learning environments. We then look to our strategic plan priorities to ensure our decisions are in the best interest of all staff and students. More information on the district's 5-year strategic plan can be found on our School District 73 website. At this time last year, when the pandemic was just starting to unfold, districts were advised to plan for September, assuming COVID-19 would have worked its way through the world by then. In this district, while we built the 2020-2021 budget to reflect normalcy and continued growth, it did not happen that way. Senior education leaders worked tirelessly in August with principals and vice principals to create health and safety plans, implement cohorts, redesign classrooms, pivot from a semester system to a quarter system, stagger recess, long break, and lunch times, and train every staff member upon their return to school in September. Shifting enrollment from in-class instruction to both homestay and distributed learning programs while holding space at neighborhood schools created staffing, workload, and budget challenges. On the support side, directors and managers shifted their work, prioritizing the health and safety of all district staff, solved supply chain issues, created seating plans on buses, trained staff, and ensured our students and staff felt safe to be in a facility housing at some locations in excess of 900 people. All of this could not have been possible without the dedicated team of senior leaders and funding received from the federal and provincial governments. It is not yet known if additional funding will be available for the 21-22 school year to manage hopefully the tail end of this pandemic. COVID-19 will not end on July 1st. Prudent and thoughtful additions have been included with this budget until we learn more from the province at the April 20th budget announcement. This draft budget then has been prepared to reflect the continued strategic priorities of the Board of Education, continued educational resources for student achievement and success, COVID-19 and health and safety protocols in place, with an uncertain in-class, homeschool, and distributed learning enrollment. The annual budget consists of three funds: the operating fund, the special purpose fund, and the capital fund, and has been prepared in accordance with Section 23.1 of the Budget Transparency and Accountability Act of the Province of British Columbia. The operating fund contains several streams of revenue, the largest component being from the Ministry of Education based on the number of students. The International Student Program revenue forms part of the operating budget, as does interest income, community rentals, and other miscellaneous income. Aboriginal education targeted funds are also included, and this budget is built in partnership with the Aboriginal Education Council. Board and senior admin prioritize the use of the funds in areas such as instructional supplies, special education and school-related programs, administrative, teaching, and support staff salaries and benefits, operations, maintenance, transportation, information technology, and administration. Funds received into the Special Purpose Fund are held and distributed for the intended purpose only. This includes the Classroom Enhancement Fund, Support Staff Learning Improvement Fund, Community Link, Early Learning Programs, and school-generated funds. The Capital Fund is for the purpose of purchasing capital assets such as maintenance vehicles and equipment, computers, software, portables, and classroom furniture and equipment. Here's the process and timeline for the 2021-2022 annual budget. Estimated FTEs were sent to the Ministry of Education on February the 12th. Estimating students during a normal budget cycle is difficult, but during a global pandemic, it has been very challenging. Senior administrators assumed, like we did last year at this time, that students would return to their classrooms like normal. We all know that that didn't happen. To determine enrollment for the next school year, staff considered the Ministry of Education growth rates, local birth rates as determined by StatsCan, the City of Kamloops official community plan, and local school community knowledge. It is projected again that students will return to in-class instruction. While the BC government will not release the details of the provincial budget until April 20th this year, the Ministry of Education did release the per FTE increases on March 12th. This allows Boards of Education to prepare preliminary budgets and meet contractual deadlines for staffing purposes. On March 31st, the 21-22 annual budget was presented to the Board of Education for their feedback. This afternoon, we presented to employee groups, and tonight we are presenting to partner groups, parents, and media for further feedback. Feedback from employee groups and stakeholders will be accepted until April 21st. And on April 22nd, the Board of Education will review the budget for the second time. And on April 26th, the board will pass the annual budget bylaw and the staffing process will begin. So a look at some provincial changes. The province of BC has been experiencing a steady increase of school-age students over the last several years, but dipped slightly due to the shift in enrollment in 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A modest student increase is expected for 21-22. These projections are directly influenced by 60 school districts, uncertain as to what the next school year will look like given the unpredictability of the pandemic. As noted on their website, the Ministry of Education is providing an additional $260 million in operating grants for the 21-22 school year for a total budget of $5.756 billion. There has been a 4.3% increase in the per FTE amounts for standard, alternate, and continuing education students, 37.3 million increase for students with special needs, 4.26 million for Indigenous education targeted funding, and 4.48 million for English and French language learners. On March 12th, as I mentioned, the ministry announced the increase to every funded student category except homeschool and course challenges. The per FTE increases now include the labor settlement for both teaching and support staff and continue to include the employer's health tax, the carbon tax grants, which were previously funded by special grants outside of the operating block. So as you can see, there has been a change to almost all of the funded categories. Now for a look at changes expected within our school district. Like the province, looking at enrollment for September, the district has experienced a steady increase in students over the last several years. On average, approximately 225 students have entered into the district. In 2021, the district experienced a shift in students from in-class instruction to both homeschool and distributed learning programs. The distributed learning program has experienced several online learners registering from other school districts, both public and private. The final results of the total student population are not yet known and will be confirmed in the May 1701 enrollment count. For the 21-22 school year, the district is projecting a modest increase in September of 113 students for in-class instruction while resetting the distributed learning and homeschool programs to pre-COVID-19 levels. Changes to student enrollment under level 1 special education funding, a decrease of 1. For level 2, an increase of 39. For level 3, a decrease of 14. For English language learners, a decrease of 2. Aboriginal learners, a decrease of 107, with no projected increase for adult learners. And as I mentioned, distributed learning reset to pre-COVID-19 levels. Student estimates are made within each of the special education funded categories by removing the grade 12 cohort and estimating the number of children into the kindergarten cohort based on previous years. It is expected these numbers will change in September. As mentioned, a very conservative approach was used in the preparation of this budget. Funding from the Ministry of Education is estimated at just over 160 million or 96% of total revenue. The International Student Program is estimated at 3,792,000. Local education agreements estimated at 2,787,000 and other revenue estimated just under $1 million. Total estimate for the operating fund then is 169,607,669, which is an increase of 5,720,000. As you can see, 4.5 from the Ministry of Education, and due to our expected enrollment growth for the International Student Program, 1,125,000. Some details of the other funded categories within the operating fund are the salary differential, which is for districts with higher than average teacher salaries. Unique geographical factors contains several components and is a very complicated calculation. It is provided to districts within rural communities for small student populations in elementary and secondary schools. The calculation considers degree days of cooling and heating and whether the temperature is above or below 18 degrees and contains a student location factor. Equity of Opportunity is a new fund supplement introduced in 2021. This fund provides resources to address children in care and mental wellness. The district has always provided funding under this category within its inclusive education budget allocation, and the district continues to prioritize inclusive education with budget allocations exceeding ministry funding in this area. And as I mentioned, the Labor Settlement Fund, Employers' Health Tax, and Carbon Tax, once funded outside of the operating block, are now included in the per FTE funding rates. The next few slides deal with the funding scenario, if you could indulge me. Assume for the moment the district has no enrollment growth or decline. The purpose of this scenario is to determine if the 4.3% increase in the per FTE funding provided by the Ministry of Education is sufficient, considering the contractual agreement increases for unionized employees, salary increases for non-unionized employees, benefit increases directly related to salary increases, and cost pressures such as utilities. So in these columns, we have our estimated student enrollment for the 21-22 school year. We have the current year's funding. And then in the next column, we have next year's funding and the change. And then the final column is the increased funding based on no enrollment growth. In this scenario, the per FTE increase of 4.3% for the funded categories is 6.6 million until the supplement for the BCTF labor settlement is removed. The net increase to operating revenue, again assuming a consistent enrollment, is 2.6 million. Matching the 2.6 million increase in revenue to the estimated increase in salaries and benefits just for teachers and support staff leaves the district short approximately $35,000. The overall funding increase is not quite adequate to fund the contractual salary and benefit increases, let alone salary increases for non-unionized staff and supply pressures. Now to what has been included in this very conservative budget. Given a modest student enrollment increase and the uncertainty of any additional funding for the COVID-19 pandemic, senior staff put forward their requirements for inclusion into the 21-22 budget. Together, we prioritized items to include both contractual and operational pressures with a wish list of other cost pressures for consideration once enrollment and revenue in September are known. The items listed are the labor settlement increases, to retain the day shift custodians added last spring as a result of COVID-19, school administration, some vice principals at both elementary and secondary levels, teaching staff for the Sun Peak School for the grade 8 and 9 programs, teaching staff for the International Student Program, and 2 specialized teachers, one for the Chris Rose Therapy Center and one for a severe behavior program. Priority items also include the Enterprise Risk Management Program, including internal audit, privacy impact assessments, and freedom of information and protection of privacy. An increase for school cash accounting and the school cash online project. Telephone and utilities have increased due to the City of Kamloops increasing utilities and increasing usage and costs associated with cell phones. And the International Student Program includes a budget of 150 students, which is a modest estimate given the way the program was expanding pre-COVID-19. The district has currently registered more students than this number, but we remain conservative until we see the students arrive in Kamloops. Looking into the budget increases associated with the previous slides, contractually, the budget includes 2% for all staff. However, only teachers and support staff are directly funded by the Ministry of Education, or almost funded. 2% for excluded staff, principals and vice principals and trustees has been prioritized and built within this budget. Employee benefit increases are directly related to the percentage increase of salaries, such as pensions, WorkSafe BC, and employers' health tax. The benefit increase also includes an additional $20,000 for employee feature benefits, which are the vested entitlements to staff upon retirement, such as a retiring allowance for excluded and admin staff, or for support staff, a payout of 1/2 of their sick leave bank if 10 or more years of service has been met prior to retirement. Additional positions that have been included in the 21-22 draft budget: teaching vice principals at Westside Secondary, Pacific Way Elementary, and Marion Schilling Elementary. Teaching staff, as I mentioned, for Sun Peak School for the grade 8-9 program. Teaching staff for the International Student Program, which is provided for within the International Student Program budget. 17 daytime custodians added in 2021 as a result of COVID-19 and the health and safety protocols currently in place, and 1 additional excluded staff position for risk management, including internal audit, privacy risk assessments, as I previously mentioned. Supplies and services shows the increase and the decrease. So for utilities and cell phone, an increase of 69,000. The international student program expense, largely of which is homestay, 782,000. School cash, accounting, 38,000. The strategic plan prior year as a decrease of 147,000, and the Aboriginal education targeted funds has been decreased due to the decrease in enrollment. High level then of our professional staff, just both district and classroom based, shows the FTE on the left and the proportionate share of the budget on the right. We have principals and vice principals. We have district principals and vice, classroom teachers, both including the library, 651 FTE. Learning assistant teachers and district resource room teachers, 76 FTE. District resource teachers are the itinerant staff working from the Henry Grube Center and Pine Ridge Elementary locations. The staff included are specialized teachers to assist teachers and students for vision, English language learners, inclusion support teachers, school and family consultants, school psychologists, speech and language pathologists, resource teachers and coordinators for inclusive education, library, language, technology, fine arts, science, numeracy, literacy, healthy relationships, and early learning. We have an equivalent amount of replacement teachers or TTOCs of 55 FTE. It was 907.596 FTE for a budget of 84,158,000. Governance, administration, and support staff. We have our trustees, our excluded staff, our school clerical and certified education assistants. Our district clerical includes education, human resources, and finance. Our trades team, grounds, crew, custodial, including the 17 additional, information technology, bus drivers, mechanics, again, an equivalent amount of FTE for replacement staff. 622 FTE for a budget of 33,288,000. Employee benefits, 26,279,000. Supplies and services has increased slightly, as previously mentioned. The largest increase is for the international student program due to the anticipated increase in enrollment, 20,978,000. And then the Aboriginal targeted funds, showing the complement of staff from administration to teachers, both district and classroom, the Aboriginal education workers, and the family counselors. 55 FTE for a budget of 4,145,000. In total then, the operating fund expenditures are as listed, totaling 168,859,000. Matching the estimated revenue to the expenditures resulted in a net deficit of 1.2 million, which means the revenue anticipated is insufficient for the expenditures that have been prioritized. Based on the uncertainty of next year's enrollment and the availability of reserves, we are recommending a use of reserves to initially balance the 21-22 annual budget. As the Secretary Treasurer mentioned, the district has increased enrollment in the distributed learning program from the February 1701. These are new enrollments for students who initiated their online program October 1st or later, and this increase amounts to 420,000. At the end of the 1920 school year, the district was in a positive financial position, and we put forward a recommendation to the board to set up 2 additional reserve funds, one for COVID-19 and one for the international student program. That decision provided funds for the board to approve a partial use of the general reserve set up for COVID-19 in December of this year in order to balance the 2021 budget. With the increased DL count, the balancing requirement of this reserve for the 2021 school year has been reduced. Use of the COVID-19 reserve, the International Student Program reserve, and a small portion of the School District Number 73 Business Company Management Reserve coupled with an extended health and dental premium holiday, will balance this budget at this time. The benefit premium holiday is possible as the premiums paid for extended health and dental has exceeded the actual cost of the benefits. In 2014, the district was in a similar situation with a positive cash balance held by the benefit carrier. 1.78 million was pulled out of the benefit reserve, 1.78 million was pulled out from the carrier and put into a benefit reserve and included as part of the district surplus. It's intended to weather the storm of increasing benefit costs. The district will be utilizing the remaining portion of this reserve at the end of the school year. The operating fund is very complex, so let's look at this special purpose fund. Continued funding for the special purpose programs listed are accounted for. We do not anticipate many changes to the special purpose programs other than the inclusion of the 2 specialized teaching positions mentioned earlier in this presentation by Dr. Sullivan. One for the Chris Rose Therapy Center and one for a new program for students with severe behavior. These 2 positions will be submitted to the ministry under the Classroom Enhancement Fund. The Classroom Enhancement Fund was set up by the Ministry of Education in August 2017 as a result of the recent Supreme Court decision to assist school districts to implement restored class size and composition limits. Prior to the Classroom Enhancement Funds, the Learning Improvement Fund included teaching staff as well as certified education assistants. This fund assisted districts to meet the class size and composition language prior to the creation of the Classroom Enhancement Fund. The Learning Improvement Fund then still includes certified education assistants to help students with their learning. Community Link meaning learning includes nutrition and knowledge, is funding designed to support the academic achievement and social functioning of vulnerable students. Programs and services can include breakfast, lunch, and snack programs, academic supports, counseling, youth workers, and after-school programs. The annual facility grant is split into 2 grants, one under special purpose and one under the Ministry of Education Capital Bylaw Program. The intent of the fund is for repairs and maintenance for district facilities. Other grants are for Strong Start, as you can see, Ready, Set, Learn, French Language, Set BC, Vancouver Foundation, the School District 73 Business Company. School generated funds are funds raised in the name of the school, and contributed restricted, it's everything else. Special purpose fund then is estimated at 18.8 million. In the capital budget remains consistent within local capital for the items as listed. The annual facility grant bylaw portion remains unchanged at 2.7 million, and estimated amortization for capital asset, although not a cash expense, does form part of the overall spending plan for the district. So the capital budget then is 10,221,000. In summary, the annual budget for School District 73 for the 21-22 school year is 197,903,177. Compared to 2021, the amended annual budget passed February 22nd, the greatest change is the discontinuation of the federal and provincial safe return to school and class grants allocated through the Ministry of Education. These 2 grants totaling 5.5 million and 1.2 million respectively provided special purpose funding to school districts to ensure health and safety guidelines were met, personal protection equipment and hand sanitizer was made available, and additional support staff were available to clean high-touch surfaces and deep clean facilities where necessary, ensuring buildings were safe and clean, and the hiring of teaching staff to accommodate students who required the option of learning in class, online, or in homeschool programs. These grants enable districts to hold space for students to return safely to the classroom and to continue with their learning if they were not able to do so. There's no better learning environment than within the classroom. Looking ahead into the 21-22 school year, as Dr. Sullivan mentioned, the district will have a new superintendent of schools and a new secretary treasurer. The district will create a new strategic plan to guide its operations and educational goals. This is a perfect opportunity to look at new and existing initiatives that are in alignment with the strategic plan. A more equitable distribution of resources, and to evaluate existing programs to determine what is working and what is not. So if we take an opportunity to look back at some of the district successes over the years, over several years of declining enrollment between 2006 and 2014, the district was still able to efficiently manage its financial resources to ensure students acquired foundational skills and core competencies. The school district has implemented and accomplished a long list of projects driven both by ministry and internally. Innovation grants and spirals of inquiry have allowed district staff to be curious and open to new learning and taking informed action. Family of school meetings support professional learning for our principals and vice principals and support the development of their annual school learning plans. It has also assisted administrators transition students between feeder, elementary, and high schools. These meetings have been a venue to increase communication and to discuss commonalities, problems, and successes within the school setting. Innovative programs such as NORCAM Trades Program, International Baccalaureate, and the hairdressing programs continue to allow students to discover their interests outside of a traditional classroom. Other successful programs, as the board has heard presentations on, are the programming within early years, mental health and well-being, diversity, and inclusion. The district has successfully negotiated collective agreements, navigated through the return of class size and composition language in place in 2002, and there has been success in facility expansions at NORCAM and Valley View and confirmation of the rebuilding of Parkrest Elementary, larger than the original facility, allowing for student growth and a larger gymnasium to accommodate sizable sporting events when it is safe to do so. The school site acquisition charge has been implemented to offset the cost of purchasing land in growing neighborhoods such as Aberdeen. Communication to staff, parents, and stakeholders is award-winning and has been an extraordinary component for addressing concerns relating to COVID-19, the Parkrest fire, and information sessions regarding kindergarten enrollment and schools of choice. The board has approved a process for a legacy grant utilizing a dividend payout from the School District 73 Business Company for schools to apply for matching funds so school improvements are not just a pipe dream. Software changes implemented to make our daily work more functional. And continued district success for the future has involved several additional projects, such as reserves for buses, photocopiers, and print shop, allowing for continuous small savings to be earmarked for replacement of specific equipment as it expires or fails without a large draw on local capital. Innovative ideas such as the dish-to-dish network, allowing for a self-provisioned credit from the Ministry of Education, which has been redirected back to the information technology budget, allowing for more innovation and replacement of district technology and infrastructure. The creation of the School District 73 Business Company under the leadership of Dr. Sullivan has provided for an annual 5% management fee back to the district. Perseverance within the International Student Program, despite global challenges, has seen and will continue to see increased enrollment. Coupled with the 2+1 program created within the business company will allow for continued growth for this district and hopefully others within the province. And lastly, school surplus cash opportunities, although not as lucrative as 2006 when I started, provides for a better than bank rate interest income. I would like to thank the Board of Education, Superintendent Sullivan, Secretary Treasurer Stretch, and the senior leadership team for their input and feedback and for the opportunity to present this draft 2021-2022 annual budget. It definitely has been a team approach. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Cassidy. I just had a couple closing remarks. The budget is not a static document. The board and senior administration will continue to work with the Minister of Education to ensure we're able to provide supports for our staff and students if pandemic-related issues mean the system is not back to normal early in next school year. I have requested senior administrators and department managers monitor closely their areas of responsibility, and if circumstances change, they are to keep Superintendent Sullivan or myself informed so we may react at our earliest opportunity. I want to thank the Board of Education for their strategic leadership and continued support. Our board members are actually a pleasure to work with. I also want to thank Superintendent Sullivan and his Superintendent Council members for all their work to support this budget plan. Your dedicated support of the students in our district is nothing short of amazing. And finally, I want to recognize the efforts of Trina Cassidy, our Director of Finance for the past 15 years. She is the keeper of the accounts, and her knowledge and energy makes it possible to complete a very comprehensive budget in a short time frame. Trina makes this complex work look easy and understandable. So thank you, everyone. And I'll turn it back to you, Chair Sim.
Thank you very much, Secretary Treasurer Stretch, and thank you, Director Cassidy. I echo all of the appreciation and great work on behalf of the board. Dr. Sullivan, I'd like to turn it over to you for some closing comments before we take questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any further comments except to reiterate what the Secretary Treasurer has said. Just to thank everyone who has been involved in the preparation of this budget, and also express my appreciation to the board for their support. The culture of the district always starts in the boardroom, and so we're grateful for the support of the board as we work through this process and many of the other challenges we've had to face this year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
So the timeline that the board will be looking at in terms of public feedback as well as feedback from our partner groups is up until April the 21st. Dr. Sullivan, Secretary Treasurer Stretch, do we have a medium of which to capture input?
Yes, there's a link on our website which allows the public and the media to ask questions, and Superintendent Council will meet and provide responses on a weekly basis.
Thank you very much for that. From there, the input that is shared will be presented to the board on April the 22nd. The budget will be reviewed, look at the feedback, and then on the 26th of April, the budget will come forward to the board for a motion. Given that, I turn it over to the audience at large. If there are any questions at this time, we'd be happy to take them. At this point, we're not seeing any, so we're going to take that as it was a very fulsome budget and lots to reflect on. A copy of the presentation. Oh, there may be two. This is great. I don't know where they are, but we'll find them. Just a moment. Where are they?
I see two representative of the public, one representative of the press. I see Sean Brady's name from Kamloops this week, and I also see Mr. Chris Ponte's name here. So I'm assuming that they would have questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. It doesn't look on the mothership that we have received any questions from them, but we're certainly glad to have their participation this evening. Chair Kershaw, are you seeing a question? This is a very new format. Thank you, COVID. All sorts of new opportunities to learn. No. Again, our appreciation for those of you who have come out tonight and watched the presentation. If you do want to take the opportunity to review it again, please refer to the SD73 website. A full document of the budget is available there for you to download. Oh, one more.
I do see some questions in the chat. When I put on the chat, Madam Chair, I see one from Harmony Rain to panelists. Says Dr. Sullivan mentioned a projected increase in enrollment, and we're seeing portables being installed. Do you have any projections for increased staffing, both teaching and support?
So that's a great question. What I like about this new format is like being on a game show, not really knowing what to do. So where is Vanna White when I need her, I tell you? So Dr. Sullivan, you had an opportunity to read out that question. Would you like to take this opportunity to reply, or do you need a minute just to reflect on it?
Yeah, I'm just looking at the question now, Madam Chair. So the question was about increased enrollment, increased staffing, both teaching and support. Of course, we would provide staffing to meet any increase in enrollment, and we also have the requirements around class size and class composition, and we would obviously meet those requirements as well. And of course, support staff would be provided according to the requirements that are established by the Ministry of Education for various categories of children. But we've also, when you look at the budget in total, you will see that we also have a list of projected, a wish list that we have, and we have some increased staff in that wish list. The Director of Finance and the Secretary Treasurer has indicated this is a conservative budget. It is. We expect that there will be increased revenue that will be coming, and we expect that that we will be able to achieve a number of things that are on this wish list. So there is some additional staff there, but we will certainly have the teachers that we need to provide that are consistent with the class size, class composition requirements.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sullivan. And I think what you're also referring to is we are waiting with bated breath for the budget from the provincial government on April 20th. Is that right, Secretary Treasurer Stretch?
Certainly, we're hopeful that there'll be some good news within that budget, and so we'll wait to see what happens on April 20th. The other reason why the number of portables we're installing this year is greater than what we've projected in enrollment is that the district can really only manage installing around 8 portables in a 2-month summer season. And so we know the areas based on enrollment projections where we're expected to see growth. And so in some cases, we're a little bit early on placing those portables, but in order to keep up with the growth, we need to place them a little bit early. So that's what's happening in some cases.
And I see that there is a supplemental to that, and I'll read it out, also from Harmony. Thank you. Specifically, more custodial hours will be needed for the additional classroom spaces in terms of portables.
Yes, in fact, we always add custodial time when we add portables because it is additional space, and that is already included in the budget.
Yeah, and I would add to, Madam Chair, although it may not have been clear when we were going through it, there's a significant expenditure line. The Secretary Treasurer might want to comment on the total, where we're continuing to have custodians in all of our elementary schools. And that's a significant amount of money that we've added to this budget to provide for these additional custodial positions.
I think that total was 17 for next year, which is continuing on from this year, which is, I think, very good news and good news for our community students, staff, and families on that. Harmony, is there anything else that we could answer? I love your questions. Thank you. Okay, well, and go ahead. Thank you.
At this point in time, the question was, how long will the extra custodial positions be in place? We're expecting this to be a permanent addition to the budget. And so this year's a little bit more challenging for us because once we need to add them into the budget, there's a cost to that. And once it's in the budget, we pretty much just maintain it. So we're getting really good results from our schools and feedback from our principals and our school staff that these day shift custodians are really making a difference.
Great, thank you very much for that answer. And I'm not seeing anything anywhere else. If anybody else is seeing something I'm missing, please let me know. Otherwise, I think that we can, again, extend our appreciation to everyone who joined us for the great work that was done by staff, the tech team, and the opportunity to play SD73 game show. So with that, good night, everybody. And please go to the website, and we'd love to have your feedback. This really is a team effort to make SD73 a wonderful place for our students and families. Bye-bye now.